Hi, folks, and welcome to this emergency episode where we will tackle the shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old conservative firebrand and Turning Point USA founder, who was gunned down on September 10th, so a couple of days back, at Utah University. It's now widely agreed that this was an ideologically driven crime. The suspect was captured by the authorities. His name is Tyler Robinson. He is only 22-year-old, and he is originally from a conservative, apparently Mormon family. And he surrendered a few days later, and he's now in custody, awaiting a shift court appearance as investigations deepen. The US is quite divided, so nothing new under the sun. The Republicans decry the radical left for murdering a man over his opinions. And the liberals on TikTok, but even in mainstream media, have celebrated the act in a very shocking manner. So here is the twist. The far left apparently is cheering a killing by someone who came from a woke far-right background. Complex? Absolutely. So we are here to unpack it for you. For that purpose, I have my good friend and co-host, Mark Alexander from Jerusalem, and a brilliant panel. I have Kimann Schultz, an American writer based in the Midlands, and I have the Otter, an American author exiled in Budapest. We may not have all the answers, but we are here to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy of open and honest conversation or debate. So if you are into real conversations, stick around, subscribe, and share with friends, family, and other fellows, and hit that like button below to show your support. There's also the comments box that I forgot to mention, so use that because we want this to be a two-way, the same fashion used by Charlie Kirk when he was at university campus talking to the students. So let's make this proper dialogue. Before I pass the word to the panel, I just want to tell Marco that it was quite a coincidence that last time we were live, we got to know that Charlie Kirk was shot. We didn't know that he would be pronounced dead a few minutes later. But I'd like to ask you, what came to your mind when I told you that, because it was me telling you that he was just shot?
Well, obviously, I found it a very disturbing episode. I can't say that I would have been surprised by such an episode in the sense that we felt that this type of stuff is coming when we discussed the possibility of major upheavals within society. Something like this was on the cards, but of course that it should happen to somebody with whom we are very familiar, such as Charlie Kirk, who represented something very important, which has gone out of fashion. I think if there's a word that sums him up, I think it's decency. He struck, aside from his intellectual strength and analytical abilities, he struck me as a profoundly decent person, somebody who represented decency. And this is a word that doesn't exist in the vocabulary to a great extent today. It's gone out the window. And so first and foremost, I saw this as an attack on decency, because I think he represented decency, notwithstanding his opinions, which may have irked people. And that's understandable. We're all human beings. We come at things from different angles. We all have different backgrounds and experiences. But he was always very fair and honest. I found that to be one of his most endearing qualities, aside from his courage as well.
Yeah, 100%. I keep thinking that decency is under attack, and the other one is dignity. It's very rare that we listen those two words in the public discourse. Like, they are just neglected. They are not really valued as they were in the past. There are other things that matter much more, like this fight for human rights and equality and all that. But we tend to forget liberty as well, coherence, logical thought, and understanding of facts and life as such. But yeah, that's another topic maybe for another time. I would like to know, Kimann, where were you when you are based in the States? So that's even more interesting.
Yeah, for me, that would have been early-ish afternoon. I happened to be home that day, just tending to some chores. I happened, and I don't even remember what drew me to X, because that is, for me, one of the quickest real-time sources for information. But as I was working at the house, when I was on X very briefly, that information jumped out, and I believe it was very soon after he had actually been shot. And so I did see, my brain has been imprinted with the tragic scene of the actual assassination. And because I see it as a civilian, I kept hope with me strong that he would survive it, that our American aggressive, good emergency procedures and tactics would have been able to possibly save him. But of course they did not. And my oldest son is a Marine, and we corresponded on that, and he pretty much recognized the shot the moment it happened as being fatal. And it's going to go down with me in my personal history much in the same way as the clarity of moment, as for instance when John Lennon was shot, or the proverbial thing that we hear people talk about when John F. Kennedy, the president, was shot, that these are moments in time and tragedy that we will always remember where we were and the feeling that we had. And it's been a very sad thing, especially because it comes on the heels of the tragic shooting of the young girl Irina Zarutska in North Carolina, and just prior to that, the children in the school, in the church, in the chapel as well. So it's a very cumulative feeling.
Daughter, I know you are based in Budapest, but we're keeping an eye on what happened in global affairs, and for sure what's going on in the States. So I'd like to understand, where were you and what crossed your mind when you got to know that first he was shot and a few minutes later he was pronounced dead?
Yeah, I actually got a message on Telegram from one of my friends in the States. Charlie Kirk got shot, and I couldn't believe it. Like, why Charlie Kirk? And I got on Twitter. I saw the video, and gruesome. And I mean, I'm someone who grew up on the internet, so I've seen all kinds of gore videos, cartel, live leak. But this, it just hits different. It was so visceral, and it's someone you've known in the media space for a long time, and someone, like Marco said, fundamentally decent, someone who carried himself with decorum. And yeah, just, I couldn't believe it. Like, I would imagine someone like Nick Fuentes getting shot, but not someone like Charlie Kirk, who always treated people who came to him with respect. And it just, I knew that dark things are possibly going to come out of this. That was my first thought.
Yeah, I would say that, at least in my estimation, Nick Fuentes is much more hateful, at least based on my perception of people. But perhaps the fact that he was not as effective in the communication or charismatic as Charlie Kirk was, maybe he saved his life. He's still a target, but he's not as much on the radar as Charlie Kirk, because he put himself out there all the time. So did you see that one coming, especially taking in consideration the fact that Trump was also object of assassination attempt? Actually, not one, but two assassination attempts last year. Or were you somehow surprised?
No, I was not surprised at all. I was surprised it didn't happen sooner, honestly. But I mean, man, he got lucky. It's like that meme with Shinzo Abe, just watching the sky. Turn your head, Donald. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think we're going to see more of this, unfortunately. Unless we follow up with actually cracking down on it. I don't know, maybe we jumping into the topic too soon, but it seems like there's discussion about potentially targeting these domestic terror groups from the left. And the right-wing ones have been targeted for a long time, but the left has had a free pass. Antifa, I mean, how are they not a terrorist organization at this point?
As a
For that
technical
to-
matter, as a technical matter, Antifa's very existence has been called into question time and again as being unofficial and being not a fully formed thing, that it's more conceptual than anything. Interesting article from the New York Post recently addressing just that, and that yes, the offshoots and the chat groups that have sprung off of that has been fomenting a lot of it, for sure.
So they're getting away with being more decentralized than right-wing groups.
Yeah.
And
I feel like there's
let's say
got to be
for-
money funneling into
Yeah.
this stuff, though. There's got to be. They got to dig
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah, NGOs and all that jazz. Yeah. Do you think the president will step up and say it's time to target Antifa to make them illegal? Do you expect some measure coming from upstairs, or that will be more people changing the environment?
I mean, I would think it would be a real tactical mistake to not take advantage of this, because the people's support is behind it now. I mean, people have had enough of this. I mean,
I
every
think this
major
is
city-
inspiring.
Yeah.
I think it's inspiring people to come out of the closet, and whether no matter where you fall on that spectrum politically, Republican, Democrat, and all of the aspects of that, because it is, I think, a spectrum. I do think that this has spurred people to speak up, because I have witnessed this in my own extended friendship circles like I've never seen before.
Were they people who are more moderate or liberal, or people who are already maybe?
Yes, and
center-right?
that they are stepping up and saying, no, this is not cool, where before they would have remained completely silent. There's been a lot of tolerance in the name of social cred. People want their invitations, they want to be included, and that's actually sociologically substantiated. You know, to be able to be part of a group and included does mean behaving oneself. And in our case, politically speaking, it has caused some people to have to be a little more silent than others, because the different voices that have dominated, particularly during the Biden administration, they were given much bigger platform. This now happens to be the Trump administration. And so I do think that that pendulum is swinging over to this side, where people are now also going to be able to feel more empowered to speak their mind of it and step up in the same fashion. And that is an aspect of free speech.
Even liberals have children and are concerned, I suppose, at this stage. And so something, a yearning for normality seems to be, as we knew it, at least, normality as we knew it. I know it's a relative term, but there were general themes upon which I'm sure Republicans and Democrats could agree about on a few decades ago. That's gone by the wayside, but maybe now something will kick into action.
I think it's important
Yeah.
for people to hear that, because when you go to Twitter and you see all the leftists on Twitter, they're celebrating, they're ghoulish, and I don't think the moderate liberal voices are heard, and it creates this atmosphere that the right is starting to think that maybe everyone on the left is their enemy, but there is opportunity to bring some of those people towards the
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you fully upon that. I mean, it's good that there is this dialectic in politics, but you want a normal left and a normal right in order to do
Yes.
that. You have to have a common language.
Yeah. I think
I
Marco,
think a lot.
sorry, just one thing. I think Marco is being very ambitious with having the aspiration of having normal left and normal right these days. It's a bit too topical. The other one is for liberals to have children. They might have children, but maybe the father is Republican. Just sorry for my joke.
Oh.
Why not? No, I know.
May well be the case. May well be the case, but I'm not going to investigate that.
No, I said even liberals have children. They will have concerns. I mean, everybody is great on certain things, but when it comes close to you, when certain problems, when certain identity crises with concerning sexuality, when it's your son, it comes home that it's not quite the greatest thing to have.
Well, and in parenting and family dynamics, the classic situation has always been that the apron strings get pulled when the child rebels or starts to adapt a different identity or thought process or platform. And in recent years, that's taken on some more extreme stereotypes or styles of expression. I do want to add, we've taken creativity completely off the table as being a form of radical expression. We talked briefly, a recent podcast that I joined in on, we were talking about how people dressed and how they presented themselves. Used to be that just simply physical appearance was one of the ways that children could rebel against their parents by what they did. It used to be something as simple as growing your hair long, or then dyeing it purple, or cutting it into a mohawk haircut. And now it is ideological, it is deeper, it's more complex psychologically. And lo and behold, we then have parents in this positive parenting wave that we have had for some time now, where the parents then support absolutely everything the kid does. And then, of course, you're not pulling those apron strings longer. And so then the kid has to seek farther and farther. How can I pull free of my parents? The shooter happened to be the Salt Lake City shooter. Sounds like he was also rebelling against the way that his family had been handling things and their faith and maybe their basic belief structure and their family structure. New York Post just today released something that it looks like he was rooming with someone who was transitioning in gender. So it's become a much more complicated thing that also does involve deeper psychological expression or also deeper psychological manipulation. And then we get into the medicines and the surgeries. And this is way different from simply rebelling through a more classical act of rebellion as a youngster. And I think that that's made it really tough. I do think that Charlie Kirk actually embodied sort of a reinvented refresh of the traditional parental paradigm. He was known to talk about being strict with his kids. And parents, as true north, do have to be strict. They have to play bad guy. They have to be the ones to keep their children safe. And what keeps your child safe sometimes does not mean letting them be right and letting them do whatever they wish to do and supporting them unequivocally. And that is a good refresh. He was having a big influence on those very young people. And I think, as tragic as his loss is, it is going to fuel probably a much bigger wave. I already envision in his wife, having listened to her moving speech. I am reminded of Elizabeth Hamilton, who carried the torch for her husband after he lost his life in a duel, Alexander Hamilton. And she created a massive legacy of proactivism. And these were things that she chose to do, and also the legacy of her husband. She's fueled by love and the pain of the loss. And being fueled by love just might be one of the greatest incentives of all. And we might see something really amazing come out of it. And let's hope it can start to bring some of us together.
Indeed.
Beautiful words.
Talking of words, I want to encourage the viewers to add their comments in the chat box. This is a two-way conversation. So add your input, ask questions, just use it to make sure that this podcast is dynamic. And there also the subscribe button. If they haven't pressed that, it would be great if they can. I had always the feeling that these progressive people, they are passive aggressive. They are violent and frustrated. So they like to see their enemies being taken down. It doesn't matter how cruel is the method. They are happy with it. They are not able to do it because they are weak, and they are silly. So they need some other agent to do it. And there's no wonder that they fancy Hamas, because Hamas does what they like, does with their enemies, what they would like to do it themselves, but are incapable. So they celebrated October 7th, and since then they are just condemning Israel in every single action without really understanding what's going on the ground, which is something that myself and Marco discuss here on a weekly basis. And I also saw on social media that some of them were saying that we couldn't mourn Charlie Kirk's death because we didn't say a word about the genocide. And these days it's all about the genocide. So it's so boring. Like you cannot talk about the weather, they come with the genocide. You cannot talk about beer, they talk about the genocide. Everything end up in the genocide. So I'll be interested in knowing, Marco, how was that perceived the killing of Charlie Kirk in Jerusalem and in Israel as such, being a country so close to the USA.
Well, certainly Charlie Kirk represented something very important. He was indeed a very good friend of Israel, and he was very supportive, and he had a very significant following in Israel too. So people here were greatly saddened by his assassination. Because, you know, especially people of his age, they're few and far between who are capable and articulate with regard to defending Israel to a younger audience. Because generally speaking, you will see that the younger audiences have been brainwashed. They're easily manipulated, and indeed manipulation is the operative theme in academia, in America, as indeed in the rest of the West. So he managed to break through there, and that obviously would have irritated many people. I was noting also the example in Italian media, and I can say on the left, people were not too upset about it. And that I say that with a sense of understatement. And this is really it bears testimony to where we are at this current moment, that people cannot acknowledge different opinions, that they feel they need to be suppressed, and they can't express a word of sympathy. The implicit premise of what these people were saying, and I'm speaking of academics, is that basically he had it coming.
Yeah, the liberal press is out of control with this. It's just fomenting more and more frustration. And it's going to, you know, when the younger people read that they have these established professionals on their side, it vindicates their own anger and rage. And they're the ones who may act on it. They're very culpable in this environment. And that's another thing that I'm not sure if Trump could somehow rein that in. It's a free speech issue, but I mean, how do you get the left to just be more reasonable with their platforms?
That's true. That's true. And indeed, my conviction is that they're going to get even nastier, because they see people turning away from this nonsense, and they're like a cornered animal, and they will get even nastier. That is my distinct impression.
Marco, in German, there's a saying, der getroffene Hund bellt. The cornered dog barks. And you said, I was just thinking of that saying when you said that. Yes, there will be, but the thing is you can't enforce social change, so to speak. You can enforce laws, you can try to keep citizens safe. But I think this is deeply cultural. I think it circles all the way back to family and parents and parenting and the commitment and commitment in partnership, commitment in parenting, where children are not devoid, empty, and in need of whatever it is that they can to energize them to feel like they exist. And I think that there are a lot of parents who are feeling that way as well. And they are now then raising children. And I think we have a couple of generations of people who are not able to actualize in a positive way. And I think that this is psychologically and socially really complicated. And I think that if nothing else, the process of time, that forward slinky motion of going back a little bit to advance a little bit, I think that we have to suffer through some of this before we can start to move forward. Using only force and only aggression is going to keep the temperature high. It will keep people on their platforms locked in even tighter. So I just think it's very complicated, because it also just circles all the way back to something very simple, and it really starts at home.
Yeah, the whole gentle parenting trend has been a disaster, and it's a lot to play in this.
I think none of you are in blue sky. Okay.
No.
I'm not in blue sky myself, and I want to give a compliment to blue sky, and I will tell you what it is. So when I'm trying to get a book published, and I see that the publisher is in Blue Sky, and they deleted their Twitter account or X account, I know it's not the publishing house for me. So it's good. At least I can do the triage. I know they are not my people. So somehow they are helpful.
Mhm.
And they
Yeah.
are also helpful the last 2 days because they show the true colors of the left. They are doing
Oh,
a
yeah.
party in Blue Sky. It's like a massive celebration happening from the top of the page to the bottom. So it's useful in these times to have those platforms. But Blue Sky apart, I want to go back to the Israeli topic, and I want to throw what I would call a semi-provocation here. That's why my cat just brought.
My God,
Just came.
beautiful
He knows
cat,
that.
beautiful cat.
He knows there's a provocation coming in. He likes
Move out
that.
of the way. Make way for your cat.
So can we? Let's say the assassination was coming from a right-wing person or far-right individual. Okay, can we somehow insinuate that the fact that Charlie Kirk made a stand for Israel maybe took part in his assassination?
That was my first instinct. I thought it might have been a Groyper, one of the Fuentes fans. When I first saw the photo, before the information started coming out about the engravings and the bullets, that was really my first instinct. He looked like a really clean-cut guy. Didn't look like your typical Antifa, leftist, dysgenic freak, to put it bluntly. But yeah, no, I strongly thought that could have been a possibility. But yeah, I mean, I think you don't really see that much far-right violence these days. Like the last thing was maybe the Christchurch thing, and that 2015 now, I think.
Yes, it's rare compared to what, certainly to what the left can get away with, because the right can't get away with it. That's the truth of the matter. And certainly violent people shouldn't be able to get away with it, whether they're left or right. Yeah. So your question, Vitor, with regard to Israel, well, who knows? I mean, it's still a little bit too early to really know whether there are other elements behind this. We don't know. I mean, where did he learn how to shoot? Where did he get the gun?
Yes.
There's videos on his Facebook, photos at least. He was doing all kinds of shooting with his dad growing up. So I think it was just part of his family.
That was part of his, but to shoot from, that's 200 yards. He obviously planned it very well. He did plan it very well. Is there somebody behind him? Could there have been a foreign power using him as an agent de provocateur? I suppose there's still questions.
Quite possible.
In the sense, are there foreign powers stirring things up? Using the useful idiot, even he may also, in a certain sense, be a useful idiot for a foreign power. People can be manipulated. We see that all the time with the young, especially in Europe and America, who go on the Free Palestine marches, and they don't know what they're talking about. Basically, they're in prey to their hormones, which are in overdrive. So people in this state can be manipulated. And they go for the joyride as well. A lot of these things are some kind of a joyride. They don't really delve into the subject matter. They follow, as you mentioned earlier, there is the social element, not just in polite society, but also among the crowd.
Yeah.
On a more instinctive basis.
He was on Discord in some weird chat rooms. So, I mean, who knows? There could be foreign provocateurs in there manipulating people to go do something in real life.
Yeah, it seems pretty well known that there are solid processes that are at play, that when a person presents themselves and are noted as susceptible, I mean, and we've got algorithms that can seek them out, and that they actually have patterns of information feeding to influence them, and it can happen, and it can happen quickly, and it's being done. And I just want to say, I'm a writer. I am focusing on horror and science fiction, and what man does onto man, if it's been made up or thought up in a story, it's been done. I mean, what fact continues to exceed fiction. when I want to add that Ronald Reagan was well known for having said, trust but verify, well, I say these days we need to doubt but verify because of the manipulated information that we are all subject to, and we have to be very careful about that.
You made a really good point about the data mining. It's really quite easy to just collect a bunch of usernames on social media that may fit a profile. Then you can rally them into a group, send them invite links to Facebook groups, and there's all kinds of things you can do. It's very easy.
Yeah.
And now with AI, it's even easier. You can automate
whole
the
new
whole
world.
process.
It will
Yeah.
be enhanced. The Matrix, Wall-E, predictive.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think it was wise, Marco, for us to wait a couple of days before we reacted, because we saw, at least I saw people putting their thoughts out there after an hour or two, and it was too early. Like, you have to be mindful with your words, with your comments. Like, at least give it a night. I'd say it's better to have some sleep before you react. Whatever is going on in the road or even in your head, it's always better to go to bed and wake up the day after. It's not just about Charlie Kirk. It's an advice I would give in a broader sense. Like, if it's too confusing, if you're not able to make an understanding of what it is, and the elements are so messed up, go to bed, wake up the day after, because for sure you'll be fresh and things maybe are not as they were the day before. So it's very wise to wait 24 hours or give it a night. Like, I would be very surprised if a far left woke person would have done this. I don't think they're able to handle guns. I think they are more known to throw smoothies or soy milk on people, as they did it, for instance, with Nigel Farage. There are not many enough to do those things. But it's very interesting to see if that's the case, which is not confirmed, this bizarre scenario where the far left is clapping an act operated by an apparently right-wing person. For me, it tells that none of the sides are able to debate, and they are doing it to shut it down.
Yeah, that's the most shocking thing about this, is that Charlie let anyone go and disagree with him and calmly let them make their point. Yeah, I mean, who's a better model for trying to create a better political atmosphere? And the one person they target as the demonic figure that needs to be taken down, the fascist, as they all call him, quite the opposite. They live in another reality at this point, a hyper reality.
You're right, and indeed, that's already a character assassination, isn't it? When you use the word fascist, they're already killing. In effect, it's sort of a signing a death certificate. They're saying you're fair game.
Yeah, you can go punch Nazis.
Yeah.
That was a big meme back in 2016 because they were throwing that same thing on Trump.
Right.
Well, Trump
just saw it the other day.
Go punch him.
Yeah. And it came to pass with President Trump, because he was on the end of assassination attempts.
And who knows how many they foiled.
Yes. Yeah. On the MAGA side of the house, guys, would you like to let us know what you think are the consequences for the MAGA movement now that one of their main heroes is no longer with us? Maybe Kimann.
Well, as I noted before, the tone and the words of Erica Kirk's message suggests very strongly that this is going to there's so much more to come that will continue his work. She herself may be one of the people to carry it forward. In history, that's often happened, where a partner in life has taken the reins and it blossoms in a whole new way. There's that much more meaning to it. I like to think that if it is going to let people just be a little bit more out of the closet as to where they stand, it might just help people relax a little bit more about it, and then make them a little bit more open to the dialogue, or just simply to intermixing socially in the way that we all were in the world of the arts, which you would think would be a bridge. I love to say that the arts are a bridge between man and mankind. I love to think that those bridges can continue to exist and be rebuilt, because many of those have been burned, because even such as the arts have become ideological separation points, where you would think that it was something as simple as music or theater or whatever could bring people together. So I really hope that we could start to look back at some of these things as a way to come back together. I've seen division occur in the strangest places.
Just before I ask the same question to Frank, I want to again encourage the viewers to put their comments. We want to make this a dynamic conversation, so don't be shy. We are here to have a conversation, not only between the four of us, but also with you. We have a good audience. I'm even surprised, not because of our quality, just because if Saturday night and myself and Mark were not too confident, but we have to do it. So please raise your concerns, questions, whatever it's on your mind, put it on the chat box, because I'm quite keen to know your thoughts. Frank?
Well, on the one hand, I think there might be more extreme voices coming out on the right that will take Charlie's place. On the other hand, just hearing what you had to say a moment ago makes me feel a little bit more optimistic, but I got to veer to things getting more polarized. I'm a cynical pessimist at heart, and I think, the rhetoric on both sides is going to dial up.
Yeah, I am very eyes wide open too. And the really strange thing in these days, everything is so inverted. It's like, gosh, to be optimistic, even though I consider myself rather Hobbesian, are we being foolish if we are optimistic? Or does it just mean that a person can still have confidence as to what they can influence in their immediate world, with the hope that the ripple effect can in fact still work, and that what starts at home and then reflects onto friendship circles, community circles, and on out, if it does start to happen, then it does seem that there's a chance. All of that aside, with the AI taking over the sphere as almost like an umbrella thing happening over what we already have with technology, I think it's a whole new ballgame. The potential is huge, because I also think what we're dealing with, and that includes a lot of the chatter on social media, when it is incessant chatter, it still fundamentally boils down to somebody having free time on their thumbs. Mm-hmm. And that means that they can be on there going on and on and on. There are a lot of people that don't have that time, because they are indeed out working, earning a living, caring for themselves and the people that they are responsible for. And so what happens then when more people are idle and not occupied and doing what we long-limbed human creatures are meant to do, which is to move and to act and to do in order to survive? Will that be a good thing? Will it be a bad thing?
On the one hand, you could have these AI platforms being utilized for good, but it's like the Yeats quote, "The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." So I don't know, maybe people who are on this more moderate right sphere, like Charlie Kirk, maybe they need to start orienting themselves in other directions. The right often fails at optimizing and promoting people in their space. Artists, right-wing artists, don't get as much funding. That's something that really needs to change, and quickly, hopefully.
That's very true what you say. No, the cultural element is cultural dominance certainly has been in the hands of people who were generally speaking, to the left in the past 50, 60 years. You raise a very, and that they have dominated the cultural sphere, and we see the results. And people who are more conservative, or let's say in the normal sphere, morally speaking, because I think that to a great extent is what we're talking about, have been left behind and have been marginalized. So culture is extremely important. And that was realized by theoreticians such as Gramsci in Italy, the importance of gaining control of the sphere of culture to dominate.
For example, Philip Roth, a wonderful conservative American author, probably one of the most important of the last 100 years. He keeps getting passed up for a Nobel Prize. I mean, the gatekeepers, they don't want you to read Philip Roth. He was talking about a lot of the issues that fomented in the woke era 10, 20 years before. The Human Stain is about a professor getting canceled by a black student. And I think he wrote that book in the 80s or late 70s.
That reminds me of some of the dynamic conversations, the snippets. And of course, with Charlie Kirk's passing, more people will likely be exposed to the conversations that he did have on campuses. And they were dynamic, interesting ones, most particularly the challenging ones where they were discussing education, economics educations, majors, what to study and who to read and who to learn from. And Charlie Kirk was very well read. And he was really good at pointing out, for instance, the economists who were free market advocates, Thomas Sowell, et cetera, and then all of these other names that I don't even know myself. And that was also really dynamic. Other super conversations that are floating around that perhaps will reach some new ears were indeed the conversations that he did have with young adults who were questioning things having to do with transgender and identity and extreme change to the person. And there were some good conversations. And the thing is, even these kids, when they're off in these other worlds, on these other tangents, it's okay for them to still have questions, because I think that's one of the functions of being a young mind, is that you still reach out and you still question things. You don't think you know everything. And what a great thing it is to be able to discuss that. I'm really hoping that more people will be exposed to the dynamic conversations that he did indeed have, because he was very, very good at that. He was really talented at talking on his feet and in the moment and making a good point and still keeping the other person engaged. That's a talent.
Do you think it's going to have a chilling effect on these kind of debates in campus? Do you think less people will be willing to stick their necks out, so to speak?
I recently read something from one of the British mags that I subscribe to, that studies have shown that students are hugely influenced to fake their way through their college university experience and not being as open as they might be as to any hint of conservatism they might have. And that doesn't just mean parroting what their parents may have taught them. It just might mean some of the things that they're realizing themselves. It's a well-known fact. Generation Z is actually circling back, as over all time generations have circled around and around and come back to things from the past, that they're circling back around to some of the things that will harken all the way back. Let's go some of the classic boomer elements that were some of the productive things to bring forward. They can then rehash it, refresh it, make it fresh and new, and make and create a better version of it. And so a lot of those kids were not able to disclose it. So even just being able to just be yourself and not be afraid of that would create such a better energy at the university level for these kids to be able to explore who they are. So we can only hope that this is a catalyst.
Hopefully not the opposite.
No, I think people who tried to kill him the people who wanted to see him dead will actually find that his ideas will have gained vigor among young minds. That is my distinct impression. People such as him that weren't afraid to stir things up. Of course, we also have Douglas Murray as well. Obviously, he speaks to a different audience to a great extent, and that's why they are both so important. Certainly, the notion that the capacity to stunt questioning was something very important, and I think Charlie he fought against that. Charlie he emboldened people to ask questions which might otherwise not have been asked, and that's one of his great contributions as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking here. So there'll be a reaction. There'll be mostly happening in the battle of ideas. No, it won't be anywhere similar to what we perceived a couple of years back when George Floyd was killed. I would say killed like this because we don't know exactly what happened. We don't know if it was a consequence of drugs usage or there were other factors. For sure, that knee was not the best thing the best thing that happened on his life, but there were other factors. So I was just thinking, if the right would react or the conservatives would react to Charlie Kirk's death in the same manner that the left did to George Floyd murder, then we will have a civil war.
And that's not happening. There are,
And that's very telling.
we're not, at least not from what I am seeing and hearing from the general sources that I have. By and large, these are, it's a lot of peaceful mourning and gathering of people. And I find that interesting. And if that's true, that's a good thing.
That's a very telling statement, a very telling observation, because it shows that certain people, despite their pain, are not prepared to burn the house down. A house that was constructed with great effort, social fabric that was woven together over the course of centuries. They're not prepared to see that unravel, especially on a certain side of the social spectrum, whereas there are other people who are prepared to cut their noses to spite their face. And I think that's a very important observation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it circles back to things that are deeply psychological. You know, if we had experts in this group providing their perspective on it, it's so deeply personal and deeply psychological that a lot of the political reactionism is really something else entirely, I think. And sadly, it's manifesting in a way, and we have somehow all fixated a spotlight on things, especially in America, the fundamental right to free speech and our right to pursuit of happiness. We have somehow, all sides have put the spotlight on that and decided this is what needs to get attacked and challenged in the process of trying to figure out who the heck we are.
Yeah, the potential for free speech being limited coming out of this event is definitely a possibility that could come from the right. That makes me a bit nervous.
Yeah.
I guess I should elaborate on that a little bit.
No,
Yeah.
I was just considering here one thing, and I want to share with you. Can we say, or can we predict that Charlie Kirk's assassination maybe is the beginning of free speech resurrection, or is the actual death of free speech? So there is an element. There's an element of grief on that event. It's not just the fact that he was murdered, but free speech as such is nearly dead.
I just see a lot of reactions coming from right-wing Twitter, pretty much just suggesting revoking free speech for the left, and that not the path I would take. Certainly
it's so
not.
ironic because that's what they say that too.
And that's what Charlie died for, free speech. So it's kind of using his memory in a wrongful way. And I mean, there's plenty of ways our rights have been attacked over the years, and there's plenty of ways they've given ground on civil liberties. But when it comes to free speech, it's fundamentally the most important thing for the future of civilization. Once you cannot critique ideas, can't critique opposition, I mean, then we're in a totalitarian system at that point.
Well, and Vitor, you mentioned earlier about sleeping on something. That's always been such a classical way to process things. You know, used to be we all had no choice but to sleep on something because all forms of communication required, whether it was an old school voice call or writing a letter to somebody. And then all of a sudden we had email access. And then we had to reteach ourselves to wait a little bit before that fiery email was sent back to the person. And now with Twitter, the reaction can happen in seconds, and there it is in writing, and there it is billboarded basically for all time, because all of those things can be resurrected and saved and held against a person. And so the natural knee-jerkedness of being a faulty human thinker gets stamped into perpetuity, whether we like it or not, because we are letting ourselves then also through the real-time sharing say things and put ourselves on record in ways that in all previous time was never done that way, because goodness knows humans have never all of it. It's not like people used to all be wise and never say the wrong thing. We've always not been wise. We've always said the wrong thing. But now it gets posted and it gets shared and it can live forever, and it can circle back and come come back to someone, Stephen King, who is basically at the top of pop culture, horror, literary scene among all people, tweeted a misquote, and he is paying a bit of a price for it now. And the fact is that to have the gift of the platform that he does have, which is enormous, it's too bad that he's not able to just think it through another couple seconds and use that in some positive way. On the one hand, he might think that that's a positive thing to raise more ire and to faction people off even further. But on the other hand, if you have a voice that big, I think about the good that can be done, the unification in communication. And so it's pretty ironic that even the biggest people can come tumbling down with a 5-second errant moment on their phone.
Yeah, what do you think about all the cancellations coming out of this?
Job losses and such. I think it's interesting that it's happening to the extent that it has, because before people were not held as accountable. I also think, though, that was a function just a few years ago, previous administration, that people were more afraid to stand up. Something as simple as, let's say in the entertainment world and in the sports world, and because I'm pooling our football players right there in the entertainment world as paid professional sports people, is that they're expressing themselves politically in easier ways that are counter to the taking the knee that we all witnessed a few years ago. A few years ago, that was the only acceptable expression at all. And now we're seeing other forms of expression, whether it's the goofy little Trump dance at the point of a home run or whatever. So people are permitting themselves a little bit more freedom in that. Yeah.
But I mean, people on the right were definitely being canceled by, people digging up tweets on the left, sending it to employers.
Goes both ways.
Do you think that it should go both ways, or should we be wholesale against people losing their jobs, even if they post something ghoulish online?
Yeah, I think the big question is what we're talking about is accountability. And I think accountability walks hand in hand with civility. And that generally for us humans, faulty thinkers and doers as we are, that requires a moment of forethought before we post or say something.
Yeah.
And we have kind of lost touch of that. We're still the children in the woods where it comes to technology. It's a big beast and we don't really know how to handle it very well yet.
Yeah, that's a good point, that through the accountability, maybe people would learn that reflex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to kind of relearn some of that in this new paradigm.
Yeah.
Just with your permission, I want to encourage the viewers not to be shy. Don't be quiet, because we have a good few people watching us. I can see the numbers. I'm delighted. Please use the chat box. We are, and if you disagree with us, no problem. We want this to be honest, authentic, and real conversation. So chat box is open. Please make the most of it. And if it happens that you are not really in agreement with one of the things that we say here, no problem. We want to discuss it in an open and transparent manner. Just going to your point, Kimann, of we are new, we are still children to technology. I like that idea, and I really like even more the way you describe it. It's very illustrative. And I saw, I think it was yesterday or this morning, I can't remember, footage of some youngsters celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination on TikTok, and that's it's needless to say, it's disgusting what they are doing. But the fact that the platform allows hate speech of that level, because there's nothing more of a disgrace like celebrating someone's death. Like, you can be happy about your neighbor's football team defeat, or someone's house, I don't know, it's not in the best shape and they cannot afford to repair it, and make a joke about it. But someone's illness or someone's death is it's a topic that we cannot use for fun. It's totally forbidden, if you have some sense. And I would expect those platforms to take action, but that's not the case, because all they want is clicks and revenue. Do you think that the White House will do something about it, since TikTok has been on the radar and now it's really the case?
There's so much money in it. I don't know. I think that probably most hands are tied. Anger and ire fuel use. We are the drivers of the use. We are the free carriers of the product on behalf of all of the tech titans that are out there, starting with Mark Zuckerberg. What was it, 2004, when he launched Facebook? I mean, the ultimate jerk move to create a platform to judge girls' looks. That's the basis of it. And then look what happened. The word friend was bastardized forever. A Facebook friend, friending someone. Friend is one of the most special things in the world, because outside of family, to make a friend is fundamental to our survival as humans. We do not want to be alone, as Carl Sagan always would point out. And so it just goes from there. And so I just think that there's way too much money. You know, earlier, Otter, you said something about the conspiratorial aspect of it and following the money. If we follow the money, all hands are tied. I just don't see. And Trump himself has kind of been an ace at manipulating. I mean, look at the MAGA movement. MAGA was a derisive term that the left basically exploited, thinking that it was going to be, you know, bad. And the funny thing is I think of Austin Powers and Dr. Evil and the MAGA movement, and there really is there was almost a comic element to it. And all of a sudden, it's not just legit, but look in England, they are doing Make England Great Again. The latest news out of there, they are actually wearing
Huge
caps
protests
with MEGA on it, Make England Great Again. So wow. But again, that's a phenomenon of popular culture. Goofy little things become major movements that change history.
Yeah, can I provoke you, Otter, on that? Because we had a similar conversation in private, when we met last week.
Yeah.
I think what Kimann just said is a phenomenon where America is very good at it. And I know you have some issues about it. So I would like to get your comments.
What I found very interesting when I lived in Korea is that all their social media apps are homebrewed. So you have, they have Kakao Talk, which has profiles. It's kind of like a WeChat. They have their own Google search, Naver. And I just, maybe we should be splitting up some of these tech companies, and maybe countries and economic spheres like Europe, maybe they should have their own social media platforms, and maybe that would create healthier discourse and less foreign manipulators coming in as well. That's my first instinct about it, because I really did like the way they do it over there in Korea. I think that's smart.
Marco, do you want to jump here?
I defer to people who know more about it than I do, so I can't really add anything to this, but I certainly take on board these observations, which seem very interesting.
It could also be the kind of thing where it's easier for the platforms to monitor such communications, like you're saying, because when you're dealing with millions and billions of people, you can't, it's physically impossible to do it. You can have some AI moderation, but it's not going to catch everything. But if these companies were more local, more restricted user base, they could maybe have a potential to have a bit more oversight.
Still on the platform topic, I saw Visegrad 24. Visegrad 24, big shout out for them. I think they are one of the best YouTube channels in the present moment. They are Polish Hungarians, but they travel over the world to try to understand what people think and bring that to the public discussion. So Visegrad 24, they were in Amsterdam. They were interviewing youngsters, and most of them, if not all, were celebrating Charlie Kirk's death in the same manner we saw some idiots in the States. And the whole point of the video was to show that this is not just an American problem. This is also an European problem, and maybe in some other parts of the world, say the Anglo road, like Australia, New Zealand. I can imagine the same or similar happening out there. So, Otter, would you let us know how is it being perceived in Hungary? Did you have any interaction that you want to share with us?
Well, I've only been talking to people on the right about it, but I haven't seen anything visually. I haven't really heard anyone on the street talking about it. It's just really me and the people I've been meeting lately, having conversations. I did have yesterday some woman from Norway was drinking nearby and did intrude on a conversation about it. And she had a more of that ghoulish take that, oh, well, you know, all these straight white men are making things worse. You know, maybe it's a good thing he is dead. And we shut her down pretty quick. But yeah, I guess it's out there, but I haven't seen too much of it here in Budapest.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was last Friday when I was there with you. I would have liked to answer her myself.
Yeah, I think you
it would have been fun.
Choice words.
Yeah, that would have been fun. But I'm sure you tackled pretty well. So she was in good hands. I want to ask you, and I'll start with Kimann, if you think that Charlie Kirk was somehow part of the establishment, given he is friends with top figures like Trump. Although Trump is not exactly establishment, but he's the president. So there is something of establishment or him, or he was more like us, a podcast type of person.
I think that anybody that starts out as any ordinary Joe, so to speak, a nobody, so to speak, and rises to big fame and fortune, I think that becoming part of the establishment is part of the process. Fame and fortune walk hand in hand with a whole lot of other things. And so how autonomous any person can remain is probably an interesting journey. I mean, we know of this very casually when we talk about things like Hollywood rise to fame and fortune, rock and rollers, that sort of thing, and certainly politics, which politics have always ranked highest amongst anything where corruptibility and negative persuasion is part literally the name of the game, right? There was something that was appealing to Charlie that was very grassroots. And one of that just lies in the simple fact that he actually did in-person debate with young students in the very open air situation, no security, in an event like that where people gathered who agreed with him and who disagreed with him. And there he is sitting in effectively an undershirt, a t-shirt with the simple word freedom on his chest, casual and trusting that the world in which he was existing in was going to permit him to speak, and it was going to permit him to listen to what the words were of the person who was going to speak and debate him. And I find that a little bit ironic. It wasn't even there was nothing of anything about protection or anything, and all guards were down. And that, of course, is where some of these students who are probably quite confused these days can have the freedom to ask some of the questions that maybe they've been wanting to ask but just were afraid to ask themselves. So I find that ironic. I think that what made him work absolutely harkened back to an honesty of self, that he truly was presenting what he truly believed in. And I think that we humans are wired in a way that we can recognize sincerity and conviction as coming from a person's core, that it is not an act. And that has to do with reading a person's voice and his gestures and his body language and all of those things. And everything that he said and did appeared to be consistent. He was living the message that he was talking, and he was willing to take the flack for the conflict that might arise when he stood up for what he and spoke for what he believed in. So what did they say? Walking the walk and talking the talk are two different things. And I'm going to circle it back to parenting by example. If we want to lead by example, parent by example, we need to do and be what we say. So, and that, of course, also highlights the hypocrisy of friendliness, let's say in a social setting, where then somebody wants to be very nasty on social media or attack someone privately. Those are inconsistent.
There's also the example of wanting to keep your kids off social media, but then you're on the phone at the dinner table to set those examples.
Yes.
Yeah,
we see a lot of that. Marco, do you want to jump here with your expertise?
No expertise here. No. I just reaffirm that in an era of social media where we see a lot of plasticity and fakeness, he struck me for his authenticness. There was something very genuine that cut across this facade of plasticity, and that was something that impressed me notwithstanding the fact that he really spoke to a generation which isn't my generation, and that was his world. Let's say his world historical goal. I think his mission was to reach people much younger than me, and that was, and he found the right way of doing it. He found a very original way of doing it, and which was very interesting.
It's quite interesting for me, having grown up in the Bush era, and Charlie Kirk really reminds me of a Bush era conservative in a lot of his beliefs and what he's promoting. And for me, growing up, that was kind of the uncool thing. So seeing him make that cool is fascinating in a way.
Right. That's you raise a very interesting point. He actually, notwithstanding the fact that he is a great supporter of Trump, his manner is distinctly different from the Trumpian style. I found that quite interesting. He had a great poise, where President Trump, he very much goes in. He goes in swinging. A very different style.
Yeah, he had an eloquence, and he represented his generation very well. I also want to add, though, as new as it was, he absolutely invoked classical learning, those images. I mean, I think of the paintings that render this, that show this, where you have an orator or a philosopher, and they're in an open form, an open space, and all the young people are gathered around them, like literally sprawled at their feet, and they're there to ask questions and challenge him. And what he was doing is what has been done for thousands of years.
Very, very true. Very true. He combined both worlds, I suppose we can say that, the traditional classical style, and he exploited greatly the new media, which we.
Yeah, I'll never forget the day that my girlfriend told me, she's not a big YouTube watcher, and she watched my show and a couple of others. At least she watches mine, so that's that's more than enough for me to be happy. But the other day she told me, I think it was like a month or two ago, I'm watching one of your guys, and I said, should I try to guess? And she said, no, I know there's a lot, so I want to be, I want to go right to the point. And it's Charlie Kirk, and I was surprised. I was surprised because she watched this stuff, say every month. She watched the Odd show, and she mentioned Charlie Kirk, and I asked her, "Are you enjoying?" Yes, because he's not just talking, to the camera. He's sitting in front of people. He's having real conversations, and I don't see many doing it. She likes things that are tangible, and for sure that was Charlie Kirk's mission, was to properly engage with individuals in a way we used to do in those public forums, say, even in the Roman times, where dialogue was a way to learn. Even Plato referred that multiple times. Like, if you are not able to have a conversation, you are not able to grow as an individual, and that's why he used a dialogue as a method for his books. It's also to stress the idea of dialogue as a vehicle to access some knowledge that you won't be able to do it by yourself. So in some sense, we can say that Charlie Kirk was promoting Plato's ideas.
A symposium.
In a way, his task was more arduous than Plato, because Plato at least had a common language with his students. And I think Charlie Kirk's great merit was his capacity to engage with a young generation who, to a great extent, had a contracted vocabulary and also a contracted cognitive sphere due to the amount of brainwashing they'd been subjected to. That's just a thought.
Yeah, erasing history and erasing learning in general. I taught German for one semester at a local high school to help out because the teacher quit on day one, and spent a considerable amount of time one day explaining nouns and verbs to the students.
Really?
What is a noun? What is a verb? And the time spent on the phone, and what is being watched and what is being not learned, but just occupying the headspace, is a huge issue. There's a scholar, Jonathan Haidt. He has cross-cultural, aka cross-political appeal, And I definitely recommend him, and he is all about getting the kids off their phones, because
He's
the lack of
wonderful.
knowledge, the absence of knowledge as in facts and history, cumulative things like that, absolutely does not give the young people don't have the arsenal to reason with when they know nothing about pretty much anything.
Debate format he was doing is also just very exciting to watch. And it's interesting because I saw a tweet on the left saying, oh, well, what Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk do, going to colleges, dunking on students, that's so lowbrow. Why don't they debate a real intellectual? But the irony is, none of these liberal leftist intellectuals really want to have these debates. They often back out, make an excuse. They don't want to have the dialogue. So,
Yes.
The echo chamber is much more conducive to these intellectuals.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yes, and because they're all given talking points, it's so obvious when a certain catchphrase or a certain word, fomenting, actually, I've been hearing that tossed around the last couple of days. Fomenting is like the next buzzword for the next day or two. But they're obviously on some kind of a big group share, and they're being given words and phrases to keep the message consistent. It becomes really obvious. Charlie Kirk had a great debate with a student, and Otter, they were debating exactly what you were talking about.
Have you seen that supercut where they have all the news stations saying all at the same time during the Biden campaign? Trump is a threat to our democracy. Yes. Trump is a threat to our democracy. And it's just all at once, all on the same day. Yeah, they're definitely getting little memos.
For sure.
Do you think that other prominent figures are now on the radar, or this was a one-off with Charlie Kirk? I saw Andrew Tate saying, "Oh, I'm next," but we all know that Andrew Tate likes to be on the radar, whether it's for good or bad reasons. But do you believe that some other articulate and famous figures can also be targeted, or they will somehow shy away because they know there's a real concern, say especially in the States, given that access to, and this is not a critic, but given that access to weapons is different than it is in Europe, although it's changing in Europe because we will see more and more stabbings, although the stabbings are not happening by Europeans, but mostly by people coming from Southeast Asia, let's put it like that, or Middle East. So there could be a second chapter, or do you think that was it with Charlie Kirk?
I have to say, I took notice a few days ago, and this was definitely before Charlie Kirk's assassination. There was a very casual mention in the news of Barron Trump moving back to the White House. I thought that was interesting. And so, and they have the technology to track heightened buzz when there's maybe more alert times. I mean, like we can only hope that there is the intelligence and the technology to keep us and notable figures safer. But I did take note of that. I thought that was interesting. And any one of us who's ever seen a crime film, classic thing, the loved ones are the first target. And so I wonder if some of this is also dealing with the periphery of Trump himself. And so, yes, I think situational awareness is important for all of us. And that also goes back to Irina Zarotska's horrible murder. Situational awareness is important at all times. And right now, yes, there probably is buzz because we also have seen enough in the media of copycat behaviors.
Got to keep your head on a swivel. But yes, speaking of copycat, it's kind of like when the Columbine shooting happened back in the day. Just the extreme media coverage created copycats. So the fact that you have so many, not just Twitter accounts on the left praising this, and you also had Luigi Mangione, people were praising him, but now you also have the mainstream press praising that Charlie Kirk died. As you mentioned, the Italian intellectual press was talking about it. So that definitely will embolden some people. They're going to want to feel potentially like a hero.
Yeah, years ago, 2013 to 2018, I had a Huffington Post blogger account, and one of the things that I wrote about was no name, no face. So do not identify, especially the mass killers, by name and face. Rather, call them the Columbine school shooter or the such and such. Somehow depersonalize them in order to not default glorify them or give them the notice that they are seeking, in fact. And of course, the news media does this because they are desperate for viewership and clicks and revenue. One of the best cases in point there was back when Rolling Stone featured the young brother, the Boston bomber. He was featured on their cover. And if that's not an obvious move to that. And so here again, we do need to know the stories and the backgrounds and the psychological issues and what lies behind. Again, understanding that it's a narrative. We don't know to what extent any narrative is crafted for any agenda that is way behind the scenes. Nevertheless, though, just like social media is driven by anger, you have the bad guys driving revenue for forms of media, and none of it helps anyone. And so here again, we circle back, even back in the day, Ben Shapiro, when Daily Wire was just growing, he made a speech and he announced that the Daily Wire would not use the name and the face of a mass shooter when they were discussing them. And I thought that was a great move because bad attention is attention nevertheless. Bad buzz is buzz, and buzz is attention, and buzz nets revenue.
And attention's also a currency nowadays. As you said, revenue, but social currency as well.
Yes.
People want likes, people want the retweets, so they get the dopamine hit. Yeah.
Just going back to this death news, I don't know if you are aware, but a few AfD politicians died in a short period of time, and there will be German elections happening, if I'm not mistaken, in the next few weeks. If I remember well, I think there were like 7, and AfD is more and more popular in Germany. I'm not an AfD person myself, and I have some concerns with their ideology, especially when it comes to economy. But it's hard to believe that some political party that is not very well seen, all of a sudden cannot compete with the establishment for some mysterious reason. So as you said, we all should be very aware of the circumstances, because they are not, they are willing to go in a way that we wouldn't imagine. Like we all thought that the progressives would appreciate conversation, differences, but it's not the case. Whoever dares to divert, it's a target. So it's a pattern. It's not just a German or an American thing. It's all over the world, and it's quite scary.
Yeah. I'll add one more thing on the previous topic. In most Asian countries, you cannot publish the photo of an accused criminal. So that could be one way just to prevent that wholesale. Like, why do we need to do that anyway?
Right. Marco, anything from you?
No, I think I've exhausted my creative vein, my prophetic senses.
Yes. I want to look, the viewers are very quiet, so I'm going to challenge them with this. We haven't done this, Marco. I haven't consulted you, but I think you won't be unhappy. And if you are, well, we'll sort it out with a drink next time we meet in Israel. So we have 2 topics for next Wednesday, dear viewers. Okay, we are discussing which will be the elected for Wednesday. So one is the jailing of Bolsonaro, and the other one is the massive march that took place in London today. So if the viewers can put in the comments what they prefer, we will respect your preference. So please use the chat box, and we will democratically accept your preference. So how about that? Let's allow our audience, which is growing, to decide what we're going to talk next week, and we will take the duty of delivering it in a very professional manner. So let's do that. Agreed, Marco?
You put me before
Too
a
late,
fait
yeah?
accompli.
Yeah, too late. Yeah, I was a bit of a dictator here. Any final words from you, Otter?
No, I think we covered about everything. Yeah.
You want to take the time to advertise your Substack, which is also growing, and
Oh
I have to say
yeah.
I'm paying more and more attention after our meeting in Budapest last week. I think we're going on director. I heard you have a podcast. You're going to have a guest next week. I heard about that guy. I don't know who is that guy, but maybe I know
heard
him.
that there might be someone named Vitor on the podcast.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. Sorry for the self-promotion here. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could go to otterlycorrect.com or otterlycorrect.substack.com. That's Otter, like my name here on the screen, OTTERLY. And I have a little podcast. We highlight growing, emerging voices on Substack, writers, smaller writers, people who need to be exposed to a wider audience. And we talk about interesting things just like you guys do.
Excellent. And I look forward to chat with you. We want to set up the time, but perhaps later on the week. Kimann, I know you are keen to publish a new book by Christmas time or Halloween. I can't remember. Forgive me for
No, that's quite all
not
right.
having the dates.
I'm actually waiting for my Library of Congress number to come back. That gets put into the manuscript and I'm ready to publish. It's going to be a book of dark poetry.
Cool.
My focus these days has been horror and science fiction. And I love to write horrible things in the most beautiful way possible. And that includes looking eyes wide open into historical things, also current things, explorations of self. So it's a book of dark poetry that's coming out in just the next few weeks.
Good. So, and people can buy your stuff on Amazon. Am I correct?
Amazon and through Ingram, it will be showing up at online bookstores as well.
Excellent. So, look, thank you very much for your input here today. I think the conversation was dynamic. We touched base on a lot of topics, and the door is always open. So you're always welcome to return. I think there are plenty of topics out there that I can explore with you guys. I think, we made a very interesting conversation. It's still very early to draw conclusions on what happened in Utah University on, was it Wednesday night, but for sure we can maybe even on Wednesday, Marco, we can explore it because there'll be other facts that we couldn't discuss, and maybe we could include them on the discussion. So I want to encourage the viewers to watch our show. We do it every Wednesday, so it's not on Saturday night. No, we are not that crazy. We do it Wednesday, same time, 7:30 Irish time. Then you can do the math with your own time zone. So make sure to press that bell button that you'll be notified of upcoming sessions. If you know someone who's into this sort of conversations, I'll be pleased if you can share. And if you like what you discuss here, please press the like button below. If you didn't enjoy the conversation but you like to see my cat, you can still press the like button. All I want is to get that thumbs up. So thank you very much, folks, and I see you very soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.